Welcome to episode 2 of the Total Sports Northumberland podcast. I'm Jeff Gard, bringing you interviews each week with guests from Northumberland County and beyond. You can find it at totalsportsnorthumberland.ca, or you can download or stream on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. My guests this week are Wes Wolf, the new head coach of the Cobourg Cougars, and Canadian boxer Mandy Bugeaud, who was born in Cobourg and raised the first few years of her life in Port Hope. She has an unexpected fight outside of the ring in her bid to qualify for the Tokyo Olympics. First, there is a new sport coming to Northumberland County, cornhole. Cornhole is a game in which players take turns throwing bean bags at a raised platform board with a hole in the far end. A bag in the hole scores 3 points, while one on the board scores 1 point. Play continues until a team or player reaches or exceeds the score of 21. The West Northumberland Cornhole League has been formed and is a member of Cornhole Canada and the Canadian Cornhole Leagues. I spoke with one of the founders, Shane Fields, who is the vice president of the league.
This is something that a lot of residents, including myself and my neighbors who have become great friends of mine, this has been essentially a summer pastime. You're in the backyard or you're at the trailer, the cottage, and you throw some beanbags around, and it seems to be a game that everybody enjoys, and it's actually become somewhat of a popular sport globally, and we've seen a lot of interest in that. We actually joined a cornhole league out in Peterborough last year, where we've seen the benefits of running a league. It gives everybody a chance to come. There's different skill levels, so there's beginners, intermediate, and competitive. But the sport itself, and it has become a sport, it's being covered by ESPN quite a bit. And, there just seems to be a growing interest and at a rapid pace. So we wanted to develop a league out here in Northumberland and West Northumberland that gave the residents and everybody around the community an opportunity to come out and either just do it socially or do it competitively.
West Northumberland Cornhole League games will be played in Cobourg at the West Northumberland Curling Club.
One of the things that we were adamant about and we were very transparent about is that myself and my friends that are doing this league, we're not doing it to make a profit. We're doing it because we like to play. We're doing it because, it's a great thing to do socially, and especially hopefully coming out of COVID here soon, people will be looking for a reason to get out and socialize again. So we needed a venue that was big enough to house currently what we have, which is 5 to 7 courts. But this venue here at the West Northumberland Curling Club in the town of Cobourg, it gives us the opportunity to expand if we are fortunate enough to have that much interest, which I do see happening in the near future.
Depending on provincial restrictions, the league could begin in May and run weekly until August. More information will be coming soon about registration, which will be weekly rather than for a full season. You can follow the West Northumberland Cornhole League on Facebook and Instagram. I also want to give a shout out to Cobourg native Chris Johnston, who covers the NHL for Sportsnet and appears weekly on Hockey Night in Canada. He has taken up running again during the pandemic, and today, when this podcast is released, it will mark 1 full year, 365 consecutive days of running. Chris is celebrating that milestone by running a marathon distance of 42.2 kilometers in support of Conquer COVID-19. Chris will be a guest on next week's episode of the Total Sports Northumberland podcast, but I caught up with him this week to hear how his running journey came about.
I didn't ever really count on any of this coming, playing out the way it has, to be honest. But, the short story is, I was a runner, 10 years or so ago. I entered a lot of, races and was an avid runner, and it's something I got away from in recent years. And, when the pandemic first came around, I had a lot more time, as it turned out, a lot of time to sit and worry and, you do a lot of unproductive things with my energy. And so, at some point there, I just kind of figured, I'm going to get back to running, and started slow, of course, and basically set myself a simple goal every day. It was just, if I run each and every day, that's something I can feel good about, even if, other things don't go so well the rest of the day. And so it just started slowly and kind of built. And, April 30th of 2020, I did what ended up being the first of, what's going to be 365 straight days of running. And, over the course of that year, I just found it a really good way to deal with sort of any stress or anxiety I was feeling. Obviously, it's had some good positive health benefits too. I'm feeling much better now this deep into it than I was at the start. And, there wasn't necessarily a big plan to run every day for a year, but it kind of took on a life of its own for me. And, as I was coming up to that year in March, I thought, how would I celebrate it? So I just, have a run on a Thursday morning and say I did a year and say it's done. And, it kind of popped into my mind it might be a good time because of where I was at physically to do the marathon distance, 42.2 kilometers, and maybe try to raise some money for it. So, I talked to Suleiman Ahmed, who runs one of the people who runs the Conquer COVID-19 charity, who I'd come into contact with and wanted to see if there was some alignment there, and they were really excited about the prospect of that. And so, I started talking about it a little bit publicly, what I had done and what I was doing. And, I know it's been a bit of a nice financial boost for that charity at a time when it's a little bit tougher for them. Obviously, there's a lot of COVID fatigue out there from people. It's been a really difficult year. I understand that. But, this is a charity run entirely by volunteers that are looking after the most vulnerable members of our society, those that have been impacted in the hardest and most challenging ways. And so, I just figured if I can shine a light on what they're doing and use the platform I have to help fund their efforts, that it would be a win-win-win for everyone involved. And so that's kind of the long-winded story is how we got here. And, now I've got to hold up my end of the bargain. I've seen all the receipts out there from people that have made donations, and I'm sincerely appreciative of that. I think that will do great things in our communities. And in exchange, I got to run 42.2 kilometers on April 29th and hold up my end of the bargain, and I'm excited to go out and do that.
You can follow Chris on Twitter at twitter.com/@reporterchris. Congratulations, Chris, and I look forward to speaking with you more next week. My first guest was an assistant coach with the Erie Otters for the past 4 seasons, and he is the new head coach of the Cobourg Cougars, Wes Wolf. Wes, thank you so much for joining me on this episode.
Thanks for having me, Jeff.
The news last week coming out of junior hockey, or at least recently, the Ontario Junior Hockey League canceled its season. Last week, it was the Ontario Hockey League, where you have experience as well. It probably wasn't surprising news in a lot of ways, but just what was your reaction, both as a coach and for the players as well?
Yeah, I think obviously, as you alluded to, was not surprising given the state of the messaging coming from public health here in Ontario specifically. But that being said, didn't really take any of the sting away. I think, for me personally, obviously it's been an interesting year, very challenging, and trying to find ways to pivot and adapt. I think probably my reaction to it is mostly, heartbreak for all of the, young men who've worked their entire lives to, play junior hockey. That window is so short, and for the overage players to have their junior careers end in that fashion probably seems a little unfair. So I would say, heartbreak and probably some concern or compassion, I think, for the mental health aspect of it and what those players are going through. It's been really challenging, and a lot of empathy, I think, for what they're going through.
So, Cobra Cougar fans are going to want to get to know you. Can you talk about your hockey background and coaching background before Erie? We'll talk about Erie in a couple minutes, but can you talk about how you got into coaching and that type of thing?
Sure. Yeah, I played hockey all growing up. I'm from Niagara Falls, Ontario. Played travel hockey all the way up until junior. I spent 5 years playing for the same junior program, the Chippewa River Hawk Junior C team, which are based out of Niagara Falls. And, I got into coaching really early. I was 15 or 16 years old. I have a younger brother who played house league hockey. I used to go out and push pucks and help my dad, and really caught the coaching bug. So it was something that I took to really early. All through my teenage years, volunteered as a coach with Niagara Falls Minor Hockey. And then, when I turned 21 and had aged out of junior hockey eligibility, I took on a AAA minor Atom team and sort of took me on a journey from there. So I coached 4 years of AAA hockey in Niagara Falls, and then into Junior B for 2 years in the Golden Horseshoe League with the St. Catharines Falcons. And then, from 2016 until being hired by Coburg with the Erie Otters as an assistant coach in the Ontario Hockey League.
What was it about coaching? Like you said, you caught the coaching bug early, but a lot of guys that age just want to play. What was it about coaching that really appealed to you?
It's a good question. I think, naturally, I've always been a student of the game. I remember even, in the schoolyard, always being the one trying to make sure that the teams were even and make sure that, we were organized. And I think that's something that just kind of came naturally. And going to, junior B games or OHL games or NHL games, always observing the bench and, seeing how the coaches interact with the players. That was something that I was always really interested in. I think, more than anything else, I have a passion for relationships. And I think coaching is unique in the sense that obviously the players look to you to set the tone. You're in a position of leadership, but you also have a unique opportunity to develop relationships with people on and off the ice, whether that are your players or staff members or volunteers. And so I think that's something that I've enjoyed the most, in coaching, and probably that attracted to me in the first place was just getting to work with people.
As far as your time with Erie, you were there. I think your first season was maybe right after Connor McDavid left. But I want to ask you, as it relates to Connor, what impact do you think he made on that Erie organization? Because it continues to be strong, and especially in the years following his departure.
Yeah, I did miss getting the opportunity to work with Connor and Erie. My first season was 2016-17, in which we won the OHL championship. And I think that relates to Connor's time there, because his arrival in Erie sort of coincided with the resurrection of the organization. His first year, I think the team won less than 15 games, and then very quickly evolved. My first year was the fourth season of consecutive 50-win seasons, which is a CHL record no one's done before or since. And I think a lot of that is probably related to his arrival. By all accounts, players that did play with him, obviously he set that standard for excellence every single day, that you're being challenged by the best hockey player in the world every day at practice, that you try to emulate some of those things, whether it was the work habits or even just some of the skill that wears off. I think it forces everybody to rise to the challenge every single day. It helps improve you. So I would say that was probably his lasting legacy there, was that standard of excellence that other people tried to live up to. And, that's not to take away from the other great talent that was there. I mean, like you look at the recent alumni and players who played at the same time as Connor and Erie, whether it's Connor Brown with the Ottawa Senators or Travis Dermott, Dylan Strome, Alex DeBrincat. I mean, the list goes on and on and on of recent NHL alumni. And I think it's a credit to all those players, but probably starting with Connor at the top of that list.
Yeah, I wanted to mention the first year that you were there. I mean, you were still a young coach, but just some of the names on that roster, like you mentioned, Alex DeBrincat, Dylan Strome, Taylor Radish, Jordan Sandbrook, Warren Fogle, Anthony Sorelli, Eric Chernick. What was it like to coach that group, being your first season in the league?
Yeah, it was an incredible experience. Probably now that some time has passed, you reflect, and it almost doesn't seem real. Like it happened so quickly. When I arrived in Erie, it was on the heels of 3 50-win seasons. The team had just lost in the conference final to the London Knights, who would go on to win the Memorial Cup that year. And really, we were uncertain about what the team was going to look like. Dylan was still in the NHL with Arizona at the time, and Eric Chernak was with the Los Angeles Kings. And both of those players weren't really set to return. And, we were unsure if we were going to be a team that was selling off at the trade deadline or kind of staying put. And when those two players were returned to us by their respective NHL clubs, it was just full throttle, all systems go. And it was a pretty wild ride to get to see, such elite players on a daily basis and how they pushed each other and held each other accountable. It was pretty incredible, and obviously capped off with an amazing, run to the OHL championship. We won at home in overtime with Anthony Sorelli scoring the winner against Mississauga, and then all the way to the Memorial Cup final where we lost to Windsor, who was the host team. But it was an amazing season and something that I'll definitely never forget.
How do you think your 4 years in Erie really helped you, really helped develop you as a coach? Like, what changed over those 4 years for you as a coach?
Well, prior to my time in Erie, I had never really been an assistant coach for any significant amount of time. I had always been a head coach. And I think part of that learning curve for me was seeing it from that lens, that perspective, of observing other head coaches work and, what was important to them and what was important to me as an assistant to see, from the shoes of people that I'd be working with. And I would say my first year, having the opportunity to work with Chris Knobloch, who is the head coach who hired me, just the amount of attention to detail and, work ethic that he had was something that I think really opened my eyes. I always, pride myself in my work ethic. And I think that was somebody that I saw who took that to a whole new level. And, there's a reason why, he's since moved on to NHL coaching jobs, currently the head coach, the American Hockey League affiliate for the New York Rangers in Hartford. And I think just having that opportunity to learn and observe and see how he did things, was invaluable to my growth. And so, coming back into a head coaching role now, I think there are little bits and pieces of things that he did. And also, Chris Hartsburg and BJ Adams, the head coach and associate coach I've been working with the last couple of years. You take what you like out of some of it, but you want to maintain some of that, that sense of self, I think, and being, being true to yourself is something that, I still want to do. So it was a good opportunity to learn and just see how other people did things. But I think more than anything else, the perspective of being an assistant coach is a lot different than that of a head coach. So there was a lot of lessons there.
What intrigued you about the Coburg Cougars head coaching job?
Well, I was approached by Alex Guinea, who'd taken over as the general manager. They were looking for a head coach. I had some previous history with Alex. He was a volunteer with the St. Catharines Falcons when I was the head coach there. So we had a relationship, and, when he reached out to see if I was interested, I guess the timing was a little serendipitous. I kind of at a juncture in my own career that I was looking to advance, being an assistant for 4+ seasons in the OHL. I kind of wanted to move further along towards my own career objectives. So I didn't know for sure if Coburg was going to be the place or not. And very quickly, came to realize that it was kind of the dream situation. I went and did an interview with Alex and Bob Breckles and Todd Reed. And, it was a good opportunity to have 360-degree discussion. As much as they were interviewing me, I felt like I had an opportunity to interview them a little bit as well. And so we had some pretty candid discussion. I felt really comfortable with the executive team that they had assembled, the vision for the program, to restore some of that historical brand value that the Coburg Cougars has been about. The franchise being around since 1965, one of the oldest junior hockey teams in Ontario. The infrastructure in place with all of the volunteers, the community, such an impressive facility, for the junior A level. And I think the opportunity to, build on what's already a really strong program was something that was really attractive to me. And selfishly, as I kind of said, I have my own career objectives. I would like to be a head coach in the OHL one day. And, once the job has sort of been offered to me, I did some due diligence, and the feedback kept coming back that to be a head coach, you need to be a head coach. So I think it was a great opportunity. I think there was, some value proposition on both sides that made a lot of sense. And I was really excited after that first meeting at the opportunity. And I'm glad that things worked out, and signed a contract to join the team, and really looking forward to getting started.
Well, I think Kingston Frontenac's head coach and general manager Paul McFarland is a great example of that, right? And the Cougars have an affiliation, or a partnership, I should say, with the Frontenacs. Like, he was an assistant coach in the NHL, and he still came back down to the OHL to be a head coach again, to get to where he wants to be. And like you said, it makes a big difference being a head coach if you want to move up in that role.
Yeah, Paul was actually somebody that I spoke to, in the process of making my decision. He was very generous, giving his time and some insight as to, his thought process coming back to Kingston. And obviously that strategic partnership that we have with them was something that was also, a big part of the draw of coming to Coburg, to get, the chance to work closely with somebody like that. We very much intend on staying connected and utilizing that partnership to, strengthen our organization. And so I was really grateful for that. But certainly, some overlap in terms of, the type of decision being made. And I guess, what you could look at it as a step, backward in terms of the, the league, but I think certainly, more than making up for it in steps forward in terms of the role itself. And so I'm not looking at it as a step back at all. I think it's a step forward into a very challenging role, and really embracing my time in Coburg and staying squarely where my feet are. I'm not looking beyond that. It's I want to do a great job, and our goal is to advance players to the highest levels and win a championship for the town of Coburg again.
Just the way things are, there's been a lot of new initiatives made. This is around the time when like rookie camps would be held. That can't happen right now. But recently, like the Cougars hosted an open house virtually. And I should mention too, you were also hired as assistant general manager. Can you talk about that open house? Tell everyone what was involved and the reaction and turnout you got.
Yeah, the virtual open house really stemmed from a conversation that I had with our management team. We had done some recruiting meetings with some key recruits that we're looking at, and with the stay-at-home order provincially, there are some resources available to us in terms of technology that probably teams haven't done a good enough job of taking advantage of that opportunity. And so I think people are looking for something to do. But it was a great opportunity for us to tell our story as an organization to a wider audience. And so, I suggested the open house because it gives anybody interested the opportunity to see what we're all about, what our program is, what the town of Cobourg has to offer, and some of the, the history involved with the team. And so we put it out there. I think there were over 150 registrants, close to 200, if I'm not mistaken. And, really it was just 45 minutes to an hour discussion put on by Alex and myself to, talk about, as I mentioned, the history of the team, the alumni, what the league, the OJHL is all about, and some of the showcase events they have. And then more specifically, our philosophy and our vision and our values in Cobourg. And the feedback has been, tremendous. Other teams in the league have started to follow suit. I know that, Collingwood is another team that has planned an open house, as did the Leamington Flyers and the GOJHL. I think it's, going to start to become a trend that the teams are going to see the success that we had with the open house and utilize this technology we have and try and make the most out of this stay-at-home order. So I think it was overwhelmingly successful. I was really happy with the event. Hopefully, as time goes on, we can continue to be an industry leader for ideas and thoughts that push the game forward.
Well, I think another example of that too is I think it was just last week you had former Cougars AP Chad Yetman speak to your team, right? And you coached him in Erie, actually.
Yeah, we're actually using this time to still focus on development for our players. And so over the next 14 weeks, we have a schedule on Zoom where we're meeting weekly with our team to discuss different areas of character and character development. And, there's some modules and activities that we're having our players go through that are sort of related to that. But Chad was very gracious with his time. He's a player that I did coach in Erie, as you mentioned, for 3 seasons. Recently signed his first pro contract. Was drafted by the Chicago Blackhawks and former Cougar. Our speakers are ranging from team alumni like Chad to NCAA Division I, Division III coaches, major junior coaches, and other people affiliated with the Cobourg Cougars team that, can give our players some insight into areas like resiliency or, emotional intelligence, decision-making. It's a way to stay engaged through this time. As I said, we're not able to do traditional means of development like getting on the ice and practicing or, in the weight room. And so I think a lot of times, character is overlooked in the development process. And so we can use this time and the resources we have to push that forward. It's a foundational pillar for, my own beliefs and for our organization is to develop the players as human beings first. And, that's a big part of that. So, we're coming up on week 2 here. TJ Ministersky, the head coach at Curry College Division III, is going to be our speaker this week. And that's going to be ongoing for the next few months as we hopefully ramp up to a start in the fall.
Yeah, so great to make use of that technology that you have available. I want to ask you too, you coach players at the OHL level aspiring to get to professional hockey. What do you think it's going to be like? And you're already doing it, but to coach players trying to maybe get to the OHL level or NCAA or Canadian University and eventually professional hockey as well. A lot of similarities, but possibly some differences as well.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, as I mentioned, it's human beings first. And, that's something that I think we want to focus on every day is that, you're a human being, not a human doing. And like they're 16 to 20-year-old, men who are playing hockey. And so the age group is not any different. It's maybe just the end goal that's a little bit different, but it doesn't change, how you get there. And I think process is a word that you hear coaches use a lot. I think, for me personally, obviously the process is important, but it's defining what that process is. And so while the goal is different, the steps that we're taking to achieve those goals remains the same. And I think, communication is the key to clarity. And so, how we communicate and getting to know our people and building those relationships, that's where it's going to be the same. And so, as I said, I guess you have to look at things through a telescope, seeing the big picture, but also a microscope and seeing the small things, the small details every single day. And so I think there's definitely, a lot of overlap. It's, it's still coaching, it's still teaching, it's still leading, it's still managing. It's, it's all those things that remain the same, whether you're coaching professionals or aspiring professionals or, probably cross industry, business, sport, life. It's all about people, communication, and relationships.
I'll always go back to like former Cobra Cougar Justin Danforth being a great example. He played 3 or 4 seasons with the Cougars, went to NCAA, got some ECHL and AHL experience, signed in Finland, became one of the top players there, a Spangler Cup champion, and now in the KHL in Russia. So the journey is different for everyone, but the possibilities are still out there.
Yeah, I think, our message to the players from day one is and is going to be to control what's within our control. It's probably a good message for life right now in the pandemic. That there are so many things in our lives that are outside of our control. We can't control the weather. We can't control public health messaging. We can't control a lot of things. What we can control is our effort and our attitude. And so I think, opportunity will always present itself for people who are willing to stay positive in the face of adversity and work hard to, create those opportunities. And so I think, as you said, there are countless examples of players who've played at this level for a long time. And it doesn't have to be the end of the road. I think, it's good to have a dream in mind and then, more importantly, move towards it, right? It's not how you start, it's how you finish. And what you do in the middle will determine what happens when you get to the end. So it's all those things in the middle. It's, the challenges, the obstacles, the disappointments, the discouragement, the losses that you have, or all those things that you fail, but you continue to fail forward. And, you take care of that middle portion to make the end even greater.
I know when I interviewed Alex Guinea a while back, he talked about the importance of analytics. As a coach, how do you use analytics to your advantage?
Yeah, I think analytics is a term that's come to be very polarizing in the hockey world that, depending on who you talk to, it's a great thing or it can be, a terrible thing. I think for me, analytics is synonymous with information, and any decision that you make, you want to be able to collect as much information as you possibly can to help you come towards the best decision. And so I don't think that it's a binary choice that you have to choose between either, using analytics or not. I think, it's a piece of the pie. It's certainly not the whole picture. There are so many other things that maybe are harder to quantify. It's more qualitative. It's the human element. There's there's chemistry, and, there are things like how you handle adversity, as we've spoken about. But, that being said, information, data, analytics, whatever term you want to use, it's still something that I think is important that you incorporate and utilize in the decision-making process and in development. There are ways that we can quantify what's happening on the ice and objectively measure, in the development process, what's actually happening, because sometimes what you think you see doesn't align with what's actually happening. We all have inherent biases that will influence our opinions, and so it's something that I've certainly tried to become well versed in over the years. I was very fortunate, when analytics was just starting to make its way into hockey, to work for a private company called Stathletes, which was founded by John Chaika, former general manager of the Arizona Coyotes, kind of one of the pioneers of analytics in hockey. And so I got to sort of see at the ground floor the development of that process. My time in Erie, certainly, analytics played a huge part in landing that role and incorporating them into development and team measurement. So, like I said, it's one of those things that I don't think it defines you, but I do think that it refines your work. And so, it's certainly a part of the process, but I would never want to say that it's what we're all about. It's important, but so are a lot of other things. And so we just want to make sure that we're being as diligent as we can with every area.
So just finally for you, Wes, like you talked about the relationships you want to build, but for any Cougars fans listening or watching, what can they expect from a Wes Wolf coach team in terms of the product they see on the ice?
I think ultimately we want to be a team that values the possession of the puck. And, again, you hear this a lot about playing fast or being a possession team or modern style game. I mean, that can be pretty vague and, probably to most people look a lot different. I'm a firm believer in attention to detail and effort. We want to be a team that competes hard, that we don't give up on pucks, that, no matter what the score is in the game, that, we're playing, whistle to whistle, buzzer to buzzer, whatever you want to call it, that we compete hard. And so I think, I have four P's that sort of are the identity of the team. Number one is, our pace. How fast are we playing? How short are our shifts? How much pressure are we putting on the other team? Possession is one of them. Having the puck, attacking off the rush. Being creative. Positioning is another one. And again, that's a broad term, but we want to be a team that takes pride in our detail. That we have good stick position, we have good body position. That everyone can trust that everyone on the ice is doing their job. And then passing. I think, that's sort of the lost art in the game, is puck movement, creativity, decision-making, and improving the conditions of the puck. That, we're a team that wants to hang on to the puck as a team, but move it to each other and be unselfish with our play. So, we want to have an exciting brand of hockey that people want to come watch, that, takes away that, I guess, I go to so many games, I watch so much hockey that, that boring brand of just, defensive hockey that's always sitting back. And, we don't want to be that. We want to be a team that puts pressure on the other team. We want to be exciting. We want to be creative. We want to have the puck. We want to make plays. It's that's what you can expect in a nutshell from our team.
That's great. Well, Wes, I thank you very much again for taking the time to speak with me, and best of luck in your new roles with the Coburg Cougars.
That's awesome. I appreciate it, Jeff. Thank you.
My next guest is a Canadian boxer who was born in Coburg, grew up the first few years of her life in Port Hope, and now resides in Kitchener. She competed at the 2016 Olympics in Rio and was hoping to make a comeback to compete at the Tokyo Olympics. Mandy Bugeaud. Mandy, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
I interviewed you last summer, and that interview is still available for anyone interested in hearing more about Mandy's background and how she got into the sport and now her comeback. But I want to talk to you about what's going on right now. You were hoping to qualify for Tokyo at a qualifier in Argentina coming up, and you had competed in Rio. And you wanted another chance. You had been away from the sport. You got married. You had a baby, your daughter, and you were wanting to make a comeback and compete one more time in Tokyo. That qualifier got canceled, and now you have a whole new fight on your hands, don't you? So can you kind of tell everyone what is going on right now?
Yeah, completely different fight
Yes.
than actually being in the ring. Much prefer to be in the ring and prove myself that way, but unfortunately that's been taken away. So as you said, the qualifier for the Tokyo Olympics was canceled. I believe it was the 14th that they announced that. So this is the second time because they canceled them last year, but I think last year we at least had hope because the Olympics got pushed back, whereas this time we know that the Olympics are moving forward as of right now, so there's no possibility for that event to get rescheduled or relocated. So what they have decided on for criteria comes down to a bit of a ranking seeding system, and they've decided on 3 events that all happen within an 11-month span, and those were the 11 months that I was off with my daughter on maternity leave. So unfortunately I did not attend those events. Those are probably the only events I didn't attend in the last 16 years. So it's unfortunate. So now what we've done is basically I've brought a lawyer on board. I talked to her for about 2 minutes, and then she right away saw that there was an issue here. And we put a letter forward with full support of the Canadian Olympic Committee as well as Boxing Canada, in hopes that we can bring this to their attention. We do not think it was intentional. We just think it was something that wasn't thought of. So we're hoping that by bringing it forward that they're able to just make a change to those criteria.
That's the thing, right? You're, well, first I wanted to ask you, talk about all the training you've put in over the last year, and actually probably longer than that, as you attempted to earn that spot in Tokyo.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely part of the frustration is, last year, all the training camps, I had a girl in from Australia, I had, a girl in from the US. We had lots of awesome training partners come in, and you're spending money, having them come in, putting them up in a hotel, et cetera, and then for it to get canceled, and then for us to basically do a whole other year of training, obviously a little different because of COVID. We were a little bit more restricted on how we could do that, but again, we're just, we're putting blood, sweat, tears, and money on the line to make sure that we can do whatever it takes to be prepared. So, I mean, it's frustrating as an athlete, for me, especially knowing that I wanted this to just be a quick, I'm going to come back after having my daughter. It was supposed to be a year and a half, and then I was, retired from sport, but it's just continued to drag on. And now, of course, this happens. It's frustrating because I don't want to end my career on, this note. I want to be able to go to the Olympics and get that medal that I know I deserve.
Yeah, again, you're busy in your personal life with your family. So what is your training schedule like on a weekly basis?
So I'm always training twice a day. So I usually train in the mornings is when we usually do our boxing workouts, and then the evenings is normally either strength and conditioning or running, track work, that type of thing.
You were looking forward to Argentina because at least in the ring you control your own fate for the most part, and I'm sure that's obviously the way you would like to have it. So yeah, how frustrating is it to have kind of that decision out of your hands now?
Well, I think that's the toughest part. I think initially when, this ranking seating system came out and I realized, okay, well, my name's not on that list, I knew that, hey, well, I'm still confident enough that I can go there, be a wild card in the draw, and still have an opportunity to place in the top 4 within my division. So now, that's being taken away from me. So that's definitely the hardest part, because I can't actually prove or show, all the work that I've put in, and just let the judges make a decision. Now it's different kind of judges, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and it's so important, as a woman in the sport, and to have that opportunity to go off and have a family, like that shouldn't affect your goals in sport.
No, I don't think so. I think it should be. I mean, it's more and more women are doing it. They're coming back to international competition after having a child. So I'm definitely not the first. I'm not going to be the last. So I think it's something that should just be normal in the sporting world. Of if you do take that time off to have a child, that you come back to the same ranking you had before you left.
And even when we talked before, like you're someone who wants to give back to the sport and to younger athletes that are the next wave coming up. So how important is this to you, not just to help other female boxers in the ring, but in this situation so that maybe it doesn't happen to anyone else going forward?
Well, I mean, I think initially going into this fight, just talking with my lawyer and stuff, this was obviously my issue, something I was bringing forward for me to be able to get qualified. But as we kind of continue down the road and realize, this is bigger than that, and we're getting a lot of people messaging and supporting and, wanting to help out in some way, shape, or form. So I'm realizing that, this isn't just about me going to Tokyo. This is much bigger than that, and it's about sport and women in sport and having those rights to be able to also be a mom and be an athlete.
And just finally for you, Mandy, as devastating as the news was when you realized you didn't have that chance to go to Argentina, and without the ability to control your own destiny in a sense, what is it that you love so much about the sport that enables you to keep, fighting and try to still get to Tokyo?
Well, it's something I've dedicated my life to. It's something that, I'm passionate about. I absolutely love the sport. And yeah, so I mean, now it's just, obviously it's a different fight. I still want to be there. I still want to be able to get in there and finish my career on a high note. So yeah, so right now we're just pushing to be able to do that, so that, I can close this chapter of my life and move on to other things. But this is still obviously very important, and something that I want to be able to do before I retire.
Absolutely. Well, Mandy, I thank you so much for your time today. We'll continue to watch this story unfold. I wish you all the best, and I really hope we get to see you compete in Tokyo.
Thank you.
Thank you again to my guests, Wes Wolf and Mandy Bugeaud. And thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Total Sports Northumberland podcast.